Okay, we'd like to welcome everyone to South Weber City Council. It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Dills, and then I'll offer a prayer.
Please stand and repeat the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, as we begin this city council meeting this evening, we pray that the Holy Spirit will be here with us this night, that those things that we discuss and the decisions we make be proper and best for our city. We're grateful for many blessings Alice giving this community. Grateful for those that live here and for those that work, and pray that that will bless our staff and bless our first responders, that they will always be kept safe to serve our community well. Pray that they will watch over and protect our military. Be with them. Guide their actions and things that they do, and also keep them safe. We're grateful for the many blessings. Pray that we can conduct this meeting this night and be influenced by the endless. We pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, we'll begin with public comments. If you've got a comment, we'd ask you to come up to the microphone, state your name and city in which you reside. We'll allow you 3 minutes to speak and open for public comments.
Michael Grant, 2622 Dearborn Drive. First of all, I'm recovering well, but I'm married to these crutches till June 16th, so get used to it. I'm not doing it for a handicap parking spot.
Oh, yes.
Sure. Then I have questions for Mr. Parker, the presenter, regarding permanent and transitional housing by Davis County. A few questions are, where is it coming from? Is it federal? Is it state? Is it mandatory? Is it optional? Do we get paid for that? What kind of transaction is going on? Keep it open. Then, would there be a penalty if we don't do this? Is it just a recommendation, advisory, or mandatory to include this kind of housing in our city? Lastly, we are not a big city. We have 2,500 homes. The only source of revenue primarily are taxes by the residents. We do have a Maverick, and which gets us some revenues, but the sand pits probably are not generating revenues as much as we had expected due to changes. So, and our contract with DCSO costs us money, and most of our crime is happening at Maverick. So when we start getting this housing, we, the citizen, will have to pay more to DSO and other law enforcement. We don't even have a code enforcement officer, so that just adds to our cost. We probably are not the right candidate for such an undertaking. We run our cost. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael? Anyone else? Okay, then that'll lead us right into our next presentation. We have Ryan Parker here from Davis County Housing. Well, and Ryan, we got two Ryans. They're team tagging tonight, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll turn the time to you guys.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Ryan Steinberg. I'm actually the community services manager for Davis County. So my office oversees federal programs, homeless response, affordable housing, variety other initiatives, but I appreciated the public comment. So I wanted to give a little bit about the context about why we're doing this. We're actually doing this presentation with all 15 cities of Davis County. So if you probably recall, 3 years ago now, the state legislature passed a law to require counties in the second class to have what's called winter overflow and coastal response plans. So as part of that process, the county convened a winter overflow task force that was comprised of 7 mayors and 1 county commissioner. And they started meeting, having discussions about what winter overflow would look like. So the winter overflow requirement was from October 15th until April 30th. We had to basically operate an emergency shelter during that period. When we started having those questions, obviously you can imagine the challenges of trying to operate a temporary emergency shelter only 6 months out of the year. Logistically, financially, it was hugely challenging. So we went back to the state legislature and said, would you guys make a change to the code that would allow us, if we work towards, that we left them perfectly vague, or potential, or intentionally rather, that if we work towards a long-term solution to address homelessness, I would say solution in quotes, that gave us some flexibility to decide as a county what's best for our response, because we didn't feel like an emergency shelter would work, would really be needed in Davis County. So that's when we started talking about permanent supportive housing and transitional housing. We looked at models all across the globe, so we backed up and say the legislature did make that change for us. So that allowed us essentially a runway period to kind of figure out what would work for Davis County. We looked at communities all across the country, Hennepin County, Milwaukee County, and the things that we found to be most effective in terms of getting people out of homelessness. Now, right, emergency shelters has a place. It gets people out of the cold and in shelter, but it doesn't actually move the needle in terms of getting people out of homelessness. Permanent supportive housing and transitional housing have been shown to be highly effective across the country for getting people stabilized into housing, get them the services they need, the help they need, and get them out of that situation. So what Brian and I are here today to do is just kind of educate the city council about what is permanent supportive housing and transitional housing. What does that mean? We're talking about those things. We're not here suggesting that we're going to bring a project to South Weaver. Like I said, we're giving this presentation to every city. As you guys know, Davis County is extremely landlocked. There's less than 9,000 developed acres left in this county, so it's hard to find land. Part of what our office is doing is we're looking for a potential site. So we want to just have this conversation with all of our cities to educate them. So if the site does become available, all of our cities are aware of what we're trying to do. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Ryan to the president.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, sir. Well, Mayor, City Council, thank you. Thank you for the public that is here today. It's a very exciting time. I always enjoy coming out and talking about housing. And your lovely city reporter is going to help me with my presentation. So without further ado, my name is Ryan Parker. I'm the Housing and Homeless Coordinator for Davis County. I work under Ryan here. If you want to click for the next slide. So this is our team. The other person part of our team, her name is Samantha Brand. She's our grants administrator. So if any of you are working on any kind of CDBG or home kind of grants with the county, Samantha's probably going to be the one helping me process it. She's great. I actually go back with her to the Housing Authority of Salt Lake County way back in the day. So we've been doing this for a very long time. So there's a lot of expertise, a lot of passion behind this. Next slide. So to begin with the point in time count, this is the most recent one. We don't have this year's numbers yet, the 2026 point in time count, but for those who aren't familiar, the point in time count is an annual HUD funded operation where every county, every state where we basically go out on 3 consecutive nights, considered to be the coldest nights of the year at 3 a.m. And we try to count as many and observe as many people that are experiencing homelessness as possible. You'll see last year we had 127 in Davis County. And man, I should know these slides off the back of my head at this point, but you'll see in some of those smaller, like the chronically homeless individuals, we're seeing in about 30s, the 40 range. And then we're also seeing individuals that are utilizing services like Safe Harbor, victims of domestic violence, etc. Next slide, please. So you'll see over the last 4 years, we've kind of had a fluctuation in numbers, especially following COVID. The 2024 to 2025, that huge jump was during that point in time count that was operated by our great partners, Open Doors. That the volunteers, what they were doing, they were only counting surveys and not observations. So for those that have never done the point in time count, first I'd highly recommend signing up. We'll be posting it probably around November, December. We do go out every January, and I'm partaking in it. And I do it every year that I can. So please, if you haven't, it's a great time. We just eat snacks, drink coffee, and we just go around our counties. But what we do is we go out and we'll interview individuals. Now, sometimes folks at 3 in the morning do not want to be bothered, let alone those who are staying outside. I'm sure if I knocked on your door at 3 a.m. wanting to give a survey, you probably have some choice words from it. So it's those that don't want to take a survey, we just count that as an observation. But in the 2024 point in time count, they were only counting surveys, so that's why you see that large jump. that we've had those folks that even open doors, it's like, yeah, no, we're counting some of the same people. What I can say is while we don't have the preliminary numbers in front of us, we did see a little bit more observations this year. So we are anticipating even if ever so slightly increase in our point in time count. Thank you. All right, so what is permanent supportive and transitional housing? So normally we would just say permanent supportive housing, or just do a project on transitional housing. But the great thing with these type of projects is that they can be hybrids, they don't have to be either or. So you'll normally see things like transitional housing in, let's say, converted motels. That you see a lot happening in like the Salt Lake County area. And then permanent supportive housing is where you're going to see what is your standard kind of housing. And there's many different types of those houses. But what you can see in what we were talking about with permanent supportive or transitional housing is we're talking about prioritizing permanent housing for a stable base for people to recover. And when we mean permanent, that's what we do mean. Now, these are going to be not for everybody. Not everyone needs permanent supportive housing. You might have individuals that are more qualified probably for transitional, something quick, get them off the street, help stabilize them, get them employment. We're talking probably more young, able-bodied individuals. But for the 50-year-old chronically homeless individual who's bound to a wheelchair, they're probably not going to find self-sufficiency working as Walmart region. They're probably going to need that little extra help. And so permanent supportive housing will also provide what is known as on-site support, because when people think of housing first, unfortunately what has happened over the last few years is that housing first has been housing only. So the federal government, they really prioritize housing first, which means we are going to get people qualified for subsidized units or subsidized assistance without any kind of prerequisitions except income qualifications, basically. And what was happening was, while we had many meaningful, well-meaning individuals or organizations that were applying for these funds, they didn't have the infrastructure on the back end. So they would say, yes, we're just going to income qualify these folks, we're going to put them in a unit, they're going to be great, and then they would just kind of walk away. That is not housing first. As a housing case manager for the Housing Authority of Salt Lake County, what my role was after getting individuals out of the camps and signed up into housing with the lease, I would follow them into housing for at least a minimum of 12 months, where we are working on setting up utilities and payments. You'll be amazed at how many folks, the last time they were paying utilities was with money orders at Macy's. Everyone's like, wait, you just do everything online these days? So those were kind of very fun activities to do with folks. But that is also the big reason why permanent supportive housing works, because you're not seeing individuals that will get all these great things up front, case management, referrals, job training, all that kind of stuff, put into housing, and then best of luck to you. And not ever addressing the core issues of what brought them into homelessness in the first place. With permanent supportive housing and transitional housing, you have on-site case management, on-site support, and even things like APRNs who can come in and do management. And what we've seen, and I'll show you in a few slides as to the statistics of what we have here in Utah precisely, is that the future projected outcomes for long-term housing stability, they increase employment rates and greater economic independence. Next slide. So the key components of permanent supportive housing, we talked about the indefinite stay. What that mostly means is a right of tenancy. So when we get into transitional housing, you're going to see things like 6 months to 12 months, and these are going to be a little bit more kind of like extended stays, sober livings, where there's not really you don't really have lease rights. It's more so you probably can have instead of a landlord to be a program manager, you might have required drug testing, or even things like you have to attend certain AA meetings, get a card signed, et cetera, et cetera. Permanent supportive housing, again, you are required to sign up for the services that while you are living there, but you have the right of tenancy. You're going to have a lease, and every year, what the big component is that the individuals have the right of first refusal, meaning that a landlord cannot just non-renew their lease. They still have to meet all their regulations, they still have to comply with their lease, they still have to pay their rents. But once their lease is up, it's not going to be, well, I'm not going to renew your lease because I want to raise the rent by 30%. And I can say this as a former property manager for the Central City Apartments. That is a permanent supportive housing project on 5th South that is owned and operated by First Step House. So it's the same thing as any other apartments, but we just have on-site support, and we give our tenants the right to first refusal. And sometimes they do. Sometimes they say, man, I've been here for about a year or two. I think I'm doing good. And I actually kind of want to just move back to Tooele or something like that. Okay, great. And now they have a solid renter history. And we're able to use that to then qualify for the next apartment and the next apartment. But we always give them that chance to be able to say, well, it's 12 months. We're not going to renew your lease. That's goodbye. Next slide. And so back to transitional housing, we're talking about 6 to 24 months, time limited stay, but you still get those comprehensive support services. We're still going to talk about having job site training, different types of educational supports. We've already been talking with partners in the county, whether it be Davis Tech or USU, that would be willing to offer either scholarships or different kinds of job training. And so you're gonna, as well as talking with groups like Open Doors or Davis Behavioral Health to do on-site case management, substance use treatment, things to that effect, where they're gonna be able to get those things on site instead of having to just travel. We're gonna bring all these services to these folks, help them get stabilized in order to get them ready. Now, you do see that we do have transitional housing and permanent housing. Sometimes transitional housing can be used as a good way to just kind of gauge an individual, do needs assessments, and if there is a person that might require a little bit longer than 6 to 24 months, then we can consider doing as a permanent housing. Next slide. And going back to, again, the distinction between housing first and housing only is that people are not just being dropped off and left alone. As part of what my job was as a housing case manager, I had to check in on my clients at least once a week. When I was managing the Central City Apartments, the on-site case managers, they were checking in with their folks daily because they worked on site and their clients lived on site. So even if, of course, people live there, adults are going to live their lives. If they miss someone that day, they'll just leave a note on their door, but there's always that constant communication. And the best thing about these types of approaches that everyone's going to have their needs met. So as a property manager, if there was concerns about either behavior or rent and I couldn't get a hold of the tenants, I would just reach out to their case manager. And their case manager's like, oh yeah, I'm meeting with them and bring it up. And that way we were always able to have constant communication. So there's never going to be this kind of what you saw with some of these unfortunate housing first practices that were housed lonely, these kind of disconnect, these cracks in the systems where what can you expect when you don't treat an individual's underlying cause? A person who has been severely disabled, who suffers with severe persistent mental illness, and they've been on the streets, you put them in a apartment, it's great, you pay the rent. You don't know, you don't help them develop all the necessary skills or even the life skills or even the in-home nursing skills that they might need. So that was the best approach to permanent supportive housing and transitional housing is the actual true model with housing first. Thank you. Now, the best part, so what is the actual proof of this? This sounds great, Ryan. We love your energy. Yeah, that's cool. And where does the rubber meet the road with this stuff? And not in California, not in New York. What are we talking about here? From the data from the Office of Homeless Services that have been looking at the actual numbers for what is our success rate with permanent supportive housing projects here in the state of Utah. Over the last 4 consecutive years, we have seen a success rate that has held steady at 93%. And the way they gather this information is from the Utah Homeless Management Information System, HIMAS. So when you have service providers, the Road Home, First Step House, or any Open Doors, Safe Harbor, anyone who utilizes these kind of services, they always will designate their project and just kind of identify if a person is exiting homelessness, if they're entering homelessness, and that's where this data comes from. So we are seeing here locally that permanent supportive housing and transitional housing have huge success rates when dealing with individuals experiencing homelessness because, again, what we are doing is we are connecting people to services. We are not just leaving them to their own abilities and just putting them in just free housing and saying that's fine. Thank you. All right, so the benefits of housing the chronically homeless. So we already can just discuss the improved health outcomes and reduced mortality. The decreased use of emergency services. So we're talking the high utilizers when we have people that are in camps, people that are outside, or people that are going in and out of jail. This is going to cost all the taxpayers money. Every interaction with law enforcement, every interaction with the emergency room, every interaction with paramedics, responders, especially during either severe colds or high heats. These are all calls that obviously our first responders do fantastic with, and in meeting the needs of this vulnerable population, but being able to have these people housed in a very safe and stable environment just decreases the bandwidth on our services, especially in rural areas or in small towns. So we have the lower public costs, the increased housing stability and self-sufficiency, and enhanced community safety and reduced crime rates. So the economic benefits of an affordable housing project, I always like to add these slides because we can all say, and here as adults in the year of our Lord 2026, altruism does not pay the bills. How do we make these projects pencil? How do we make these things benefit our community? So we have the reduced public costs that we talked about, the job creation and local spending. When people live in the communities that they're able to work in, that just booms the economy. As a resident of Tooele County, I can tell you, Tooele County commissioners and Tooele City Councils, they're trying to figure out how to bring jobs there because about 80% of us commute into Salt Lake County, and they know that's a lot of money they're leaving on the table. So when you have these housing projects that are able to connect residents to educational prospects, job prospects, you are now getting a new employee here in your city, here in your area. Enhance property values, increase tax revenue, and decrease reliance on social services. So again, when people are able to stabilize, because I mean, sure, we can always want to hope for the best, prepare for the worst, but in the end, everyone wants to live with dignity. Everyone wants to be independent. And so when we're able to create these kind of networks, when we're able to create these infrastructures, this one goes ahead and just continues to support that quality of life for our areas. And you'll see that even in Salt Lake City, where you have downtowns and you have all these different services that were purpose supportive housing projects are, you see quiet and sticky. And then what does a purpose supportive housing or transitional housing project look like in your community? So the great thing is that we are no longer in the 80s. We do not have to live with the old box, DC, Chicago style housing projects. Our purpose supportive housing projects can adapt to anything that the architects need to for whatever communities desire. In fact, the three resource centers that came online in the Salt Lake City area after the closure of the downtown shelter, those were all designed with input from the communities from the neighborhoods in those communities. So we can use different cottage clusters. They don't have to be these big old apartment buildings. We can do townhomes. If we want, we can even do reuse projects. Because again, as Ryan was mentioning, yes, the land is very tight. Are we looking at redevelopment, infill? There's nothing that can't be done when it comes to purpose supportive housing and transitional housing projects with the amazing developers we have in this day and age, and especially developers here in Utah. And we've already been talking with some that are very interested in doing a project in somewhere in Davis County. And so the community partners that we have been in constant touch with over these past few months and getting this kind of really just kind of getting the ball rolling and these conversations going has been Davis Behavioral Health. Some of you might be familiar that they are currently building their own housing development in the Kaysville, Logan, or Layton kind of border. We have Open Doors, Davis Community Housing Authority, Utah State University, and Davis Technical College. Intermountain Health has also talked about wanting to be able to support with any kind of health initiatives. And then next, so finally, the reason why we're here, and I wanted to rephrase this, but I didn't have time this afternoon. What we are asking is that if an opportunity arises, because again, at this point, nothing has been penciled, nothing is mandatory, nothing like we're not swinging hammers or anything like that at this point. If an opportunity were to arise, and we had the partners, we had the finances, we had everything ready to go, and something like this were to be considered, and there was a site and an opportunity here in South Weaver, that you would at least consider hearing what the project could do. And the thing when we're talking about these type of projects is that every community has a different need, right? The need of Davis County is not the same as Salt Lake County. So in Tooele, where I'm currently living at, where we're a rural area and people do not want to have huge shelters, we have a very small and very practical homeless shelter that is in a residential neighborhood, and it has 60 beds. It's not like the South Salt Lake shelter where we were talking about 300 beds, or how the legislature we're talking about maybe building an 1,100 bed shelter. So if we're talking, well, what are we looking at with this development? It could be 50 units, 60 units, and then everything that we can do as a county to help support any kind of environmental impact, whether we're using CDBG or home funding, again, because we want to be a supportive partner in all of this. We're not here to say, yeah, you guys should let this developer, this operator open up here because we just think it's good. We want to do what we can to help support our communities, our cities, and all stakeholders. And with that, I'm open to any questions that the council will have.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Anyone have any comments? Or any questions?
Do we have anything like this in Davis County now?
We do not.
I didn't think so.
And that's what we are hoping. We at least want to find just somewhere to build one permanent supportive housing project, because the need is there. Now, and again, if we saw what the point in time count was, we're talking 127 last year, and not all of those are going to be individuals that need permanent supportive housing. So on the top, 40, 50, 60 units, things to that effect. Just one appropriate size permanent supportive housing project in Davis County is something that we are hoping to have as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I think we're approaching it the right way. I really do.
No,
That's,
absolutely.
yeah.
And because I was Brian saying, well, we want, because we believe that sure, shelters, they have their purpose. They really do. I mean, in fact, Safe Harbor is a fantastic community partner that we have. But we are wanting to work upstream of this, right? Because in the end, while there's so many different nuances and solutions that we could try to deal to address ending homelessness, what is it all about? Housing. Housing, 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 but the right housing. We're not going to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. We see what permanent supportive housing can do, especially for those who have who are chronically homeless, people that require a lot more deeper need. And saying, instead of just putting people in disconnected units just across counties and trying to connect, let's bring the services and everyone together under the same roof. And that is what is going to bring consistency and stability, and in the end, self-sufficiency and long-term.
Great, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, next we need to approve our consent agenda consisting of March 10th, 2026 minutes, March 24th, 2026 minutes, March checks and February's budget to actual. Counselor, is there any changes or discussion to any of these items? If not, we'll ask for a motion to approve them.
To approve the consent agenda?
Seconded.
Excuse me, we have a motion and a second. Councilman Alverson, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item, ordinance 2026-05 zone change of 1.45 acres at approximately 1121 East Lester Street, from agriculture to residential low density. Council, do you have any discussion on this item?
I think it's a great idea, and maybe just for Lance. I mean, I know are they able to split that into two lots without having to do like one of our private roads or a?
They will have to extend the cul-de-sac and make it.
Oh, okay.
Kind of mirror what's on the north side. Right, yeah, the north side. It'll be a shorter cul-de-sac, but it'll have to have that cul-de-sac.
But they are putting a cul-de-sac in there.
Yeah,
That was my.
we looked at, previously, there were a lot of people who came in and were looking at property doing 4 or 5 homes. And they just couldn't make it.
And that's why I was wondering how that.
Yeah,
fit.
but this 2 is very doable.
Okay.
Okay, we'll look for a motion then.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve ordinance 2026-05 zone change of 1.45 acres at approximately 1121 East Lester Drive from agriculture to residential low density.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Councilman Davis. We'll do a roll call starting with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Great, motion carries. Appreciate it, thank you. Next item, resolution 26-09, amending the consolidated fee schedule, chapter 7, impact fee 5, sewer. Any discussion on this resolution? Not, someone would like to make a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 26-09, amending the consolidated fee schedule, chapter 7, impact fees.
Seconded.
Motion is second by Councilman Haverson. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Councilman Haverson.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next next item. Direction on construction project at 7375 South and 125 East. Dave, I assume you're going to lead us in that discussion.
Yes. The packet gives a brief summary based on the retreat discussion and the direction of staff to go and design the project and see if we could get that ready for bid. Before we bid, we wanted to bring that back to the council and have a discussion. Staff's recommendation is to put this project in the budget for fiscal year 27. However, not bid it until next spring. The reason for that is information that we've gathered since the retreat in doing the design and meeting with Davis County shows us that we have more opportunity to receive potential grant funding from the county, pursue that, as well as look to rescope the project by rerouting it and potentially saving money by not having to run the length of South Weber Drive. But those things are still kind of yet to be determined of timeline and whatnot. Brett has done really good work through the budget committee meetings to this point to put the entirety of the project in the budget, but that would be money that we wouldn't have to spend if we're able to just wait a year and bid it next year. So that's the recommendation by staff, is put it in the budget for fiscal year 27 so that we could then do that project next year, calendar year.
The time frame in which it's going to be in next year's budget, I think you said bid it in April. Is it the whole amount of the project going to be spent in the fiscal year 27 budget? And is it required to put all that in the 2026 budget?
The answer to that is no, it would not all be spent in fiscal year 27. At this point, determining how much of the project would be in fiscal year 27 versus need to be in fiscal year 28, we just don't have those details yet.
So I guess I just don't understand. If we don't really have all the details for the project, if we don't even know really if we're gonna get a grant for it, there's changes that could be made, everything that we just learned. Why aren't we just handling that as an amendment? We'd have the funds still at that same time during the 27th, but then we'd actually be able to see what we're voting yes for, how much, what, why, how.
We're happy to do that as well. That's an option and a process we could utilize as well. Either one would work.
Is there an advantageous path either way, or is it sixes?
Joel brings up a really important point, that simply a transparency aspect of saying we know exactly how much we're budgeting for the project based on the updated information that we gather from now through January, February next year when we'd want to bid it out. We could bring a budget amendment back at that point so that it would be more clear what the total project cost is. For ease, we could put in what we have now, knowing that we're not authorizing that spend. We're just putting that money in the budget. So either one really works. I think there's pros and cons to both, but it's from a clarity standpoint, doing it as a budget amendment makes sense. From maybe an ease standpoint, it's already in the draft budget, so we could just leave it like that. But either way, we're good as staff.
So if I'm hearing the recommendation correctly, outside of what you just called out, is the recommendation is to postpone the project a year because we feel like there could be significant changes from now until then that would be advantageous for the city. Is that correct?
Yes.
But not a full year, more, I mean, a full year, yes, but sorry, our budget year doesn't start till July.
Right.
So we're really talking about postponing it 6 months.
Right.
But we're appropriating the funds for the entire project just to be appropriate, sorry.
And I agree with both. I don't know that I have a preference either way. I would like it, I mean, it's a significant amount. When you look at it's like the third page of the budget report. I mean, it shows those dollars and where they have to come from. They're significant dollars out of the funds. As Wayne and I reviewed it in the finance committee, I mean, it definitely is a significant toll on the funds. And the mayor can attest that, he was there too. I mean, I wouldn't mind if there was even an air tag somewhere in the budget so that we see that those are funds we're considering for that budget year. But I mean, I'm okay with it, whether we budget that amount or not. I still think the project definitely needs to progress. I like the fact that we're having Brandon design it so that we can start that process.
I like for the fact that it's fully appropriated in the budget, because then the funds can't be reappropriated.
Move somewhere
Now we
else.
don't have any money once the project does go, and now we're having to.
I agree with that totally.
I'd rather have it there reserved, not spend it, given the information that comes forward, or be able to spend it and have that flexibility. We don't have to spend it if we get the grants, but having it there keeps it there and not reappropriate something else that might come up.
But one of those important.
Yeah,
Then I guess we might cancel it.
and those clauses in the contract that we can bid it in different schedules. go that route, but yeah, I see your point.
What would we like to do?
I like it being appropriated.
I like that too.
So at least we know that that amount is reserved for something. I like that.
You guys good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. Anything else, Dave?
Is Brett good with that? He has to find the money all the time.
I can find the money. No, it really is, six is either way. I do like it being appropriated in there so that, like you have already mentioned, that it shows the full amount of what the project could be. My thought is the amount that we do have appropriated is higher than what the project will be. And we can bring those numbers up when it gets closer. We have better numbers, a better idea of how the project is going to go. But I like having it in there.
Just for total transparency, the one fund, I believe it's the storm drain fund, is basically making taking a loan from the other funds, and it's about a 10-year payback period.
Correct.
That's the one, I'll say negative, but the one thing you would need to realize to make the project go, their portion of it, they don't have the money right now, but those are impact fees that are gonna reimburse it, right? Is it not?
Yeah, so storm drain is basically short $1 million of the $4.5 million total project cost. And that's divided up over the different funds and their portions, but storm drain by itself is about $1 million short. We don't have a specific number at this point of how much cost savings we could have by rerouting, but it could potentially wipe away that deficit by rerouting it. And so that would perhaps take away the need to loan from future storm drain impact fees.
Summarize, the worst case scenario for the project is what's being appropriated.
Exactly. Ultimately, this decision will be made through the budget process. This was an action item. If the council wanted to bid the project and say, yes, go bid it, then there's a conversation of, do we need to amend our current budget or put it into the fiscal year 27 budget? With the delay, there's not an action needed on this item right now. The decision will be made through the budget process.
Can I just quickly clarify that the different funds that are paying for the project, that's what a lot of the savings, the fund balance that is being used. That's the intent of it, is to go towards projects like this. Just so that you guys are aware that we're not just spending fund balance just to spend it, but that's the intent of the fund balance, is to cover projects, bigger projects that we don't get enough revenue in 1 year.
Well said.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Okay,
You get the direction you need, Dave?
I think,
Yes, there was a majority of the council that said leave it in the budget as is,
And bid it next January.
and then bid it next January, February.
Yeah, okay.
With more information while we pursue the grant and,
Sorry, I was misreading your facial expression. I thought maybe you were questioning what.
sorry, no.
No.
the grant from the county, we should know, like, I think it's the end of September, isn't it? So,
November?
no, that's about November, yeah,
Yeah, it's fall time frame there.
on that. Okay, next item, discussion item, fiscal year 2027 budget, Brett. We'll let you lead this, you and Dave.
I guess what do you guys want to discuss? Really, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of this information is in that document provided. There's a lot of different topics that we could cover. The hope was that you guys had time to review this. and that you come back with your own specific questions, but I do want to point out between the retreat, when we met in February, and the current budget that's in there right now, that difference, I have it broken out in a percentage. I didn't really feel that the dollar amounts were valuable in this sense, but you can see we worked very well with different departments and come up with a number to show where the changes were from the retreat to now. And as you can see, a big portion of that is the projects. The two big projects or equipment that we have this year is the 7375 and also the purchase of the Quint. That's where a big portion of that is going, and that's where a majority of the changes from the retreat to now occur. In operation and maintenance, we did see a decrease. We focused, I worked with the departments very closely to try and figure out where we can make cuts, and or not necessarily make cuts, but also look at where we can save the city money. Are we spending too much in one area? And things like that. We went through it with the departments. Dave and I have gone over it. I've done a lot of research on the data. That's where it is. Salaries covers about 6% of the increase. Bank charges were actually surprisingly, even though that's a 2%, is more than I was expecting, but that's kind of where the numbers landed for that. Services is a little bit less than 1%. And like I said, the operation and maintenance is a negative 4% at the moment.
So you believe that the maintenance on the new Public Works building is going to be less than what we were paying at the old one?
Operation and maintenance is more than just the maintenance. There's
I know, that's why I said
Oh,
maintenance instead of
overall.
operation and maintenance.
overall, their department, yes. Between all the other departments, it decreased. Does that make sense?
All you did was just repeat the statement, but I guess.
But it's this is, I didn't want to go department by department for the fact that I wanted you guys to look at a city as a whole. Even though, yes, the new public works building, their operation and maintenance did increase, but not at the same rate as the whole city decreased. It is just a slight decrease, and if we had not done the public works building, it would have been probably a more drastic percentage difference, but there's actually brought it up quite a bit, closer to that negative 4%.
So any specifics on where we did such large maintenance cuts?
One place in particular was our internet service provider. There was a good chunk of change that we were paying every year. When Connext came through, they offered the city a proposal and a rate that we couldn't pass up on for the whole city to switch over. And we're working on that as one of our projects with IT to switch over to be on Connext fiber.
Rachel?
No, you
Oh, I just didn't want to interrupt if you did anything. Okay, Brett, would you explain, we have a balanced budget put in here. Can you explain, not just for the council, but for the public?
Yeah, that's probably where I should have started. A balanced budget, in essence, is saying that our revenues equals our expenditures at the moment.
Well, my question, let me get to my question.
Okay.
Because you might be going someplace different. The balanced budget that you presented is based upon what changed in the revenue? Are we just holding our property tax? Are we going to maintain the rate? Or what are we doing in regards to making sure that the budget stays balanced?
There's, in relation, so the property tax is actually a smaller portion of the revenue that comes in through the city, but it is a good portion because it impacts the community at most. And so the property tax at this moment is to is to increase the rate to where the rate was 2 years ago, I believe, is where we're at. To increase the rate. Not just hold the rate, to increase the rate to where it was 2 years. Last year, it decreased. And we felt that it was sufficient. It wasn't a huge request, and we felt that it wasn't necessary to go through truth and taxation to hold the rate. And so this year, we're looking at bringing that rate back up to where it was 2 years ago.
That percent increase estimated is
The dollar amount or the percentage?
percentage?
It was about 5%.
Which is about $60,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which I did do some math and looking at it for the average median home. It's around I think it was around 550 was the average median home size. It was an increase of about $2.15 a year per year.
What Brett is saying is that this budget includes the intent to go through the truth and taxation process. To take our rate from the 1434, 0.001434 to 0.001441, which is where we were 2 years ago. As a rate. And when the city determines this is the rate that we're trying to hold, then the estimated amount that we receive becomes an estimate. I said estimated amount, it becomes an estimate. The other inverse of that is the city could say, we want to generate X dollar amount in property tax, and the county would then back into a rate and tell us what the new rate would be to generate that amount of property tax. So the last few years, we've talked about maintaining a certain rate or area of rate, and then we've had to estimate the amount of property tax that would come from that rate.
Other questions?
Say that, Joel.
I said, do you guys have anything?
No, I don't have any other questions on it other than if everybody's okay with that last item. Because that's kind of the main discussion item. I was thinking we were holding the rate when we met in our last admin finance committee.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about going back to what we were 2 years ago. Because we let it deteriorate a year ago and drop down. I don't know where everybody else was on that same page. And I was gonna maybe just ask Brett and I know it's a guess, and I don't need you to do it tonight, but so that we can know what the amount would be in your estimate if we just hold the rate. At what our current percentage rate.
The difference between those two rates last year was about $6,000. It was not a big number.
That's what
That's what you're asking. What would that
that's
be?
what I'm asking, because I think it might be a little more palatable.
Yeah, that
To hold the rate.
difference would be anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000
That's kinda what I
difference.
We will still get more revenue,
Correct.
most likely, unless
Yeah.
the county tells us something different. But it would be holding the same rate.
Yeah.
I did not at all plan to raise the rate. And I'll let you know, I don't support that at all right now. I wish. Right, I honestly don't know what to say. I wish that we could have a project that actually looks at how much we're spending per capita. Because past month and a half, I've been running numbers and we're higher than everybody. Whether it's the same type of cities that we are. I mean, when you start getting into the ridiculous, $686 per capita is the burden that we have on a $7.26 billion total general fund expenditures. And that's what we're talking about right now. And I mean, when we're looking at that and everybody else are, I mean, South Ogden, they're half that. Fruit Heights, way below it. West Point, again, half. I'm just saying that we've got to eventually stop taking money from the residents and say, okay, if this is the level of service you guys want, this is what we need. I don't think we can do that as long as every single year we're giving another 5% to all salary. I don't think we can do that where we don't really have a good capital budget, so we're bonding for things. I mean, just even looking at it versus other cities and all of these different categories that we listed in there, we're way higher than everybody else. There's nothing that I can find that we can go, woohoo, we spent less money on. I mean, we're ridiculously high even on parks right now compared to some of the other cities. And that we know is probably because we've got more grass than everybody else that is existing as our parks, not because of how much we're spending on them or the rec. I wish we could take a look at it. And I know that's not part of the budget process. Budget process is just to see what we've talked about and agreed to it. And I wish that there was more. I'm sorry. We've got parsons that will probably be shutting down or staying at the $75,000 to $50,000 instead of $375,000 that they were at their peak in 21, usually averaging about 350,000. That's gone. That's going away. We haven't seen as much as we'd like to out of general RV, and the indications is the market is still really, really slow on sales. We're asking to give more people full-time status with benefits, which sure, that takes up part of this year, but that also puts us on the hook for the next 10 years. Somebody making 65,000 here, we're talking about literally $1 million+ in 10 years of additional costs for the benefits, for the retirement. And it just gets to that point where I don't think we're looking far enough ahead to be able to say, well, it's just this amount. And I would love to have the time to be able to do that. I would love to have the information to be able to do that. I mean, I've gone through and I've looked at so many different things, just trying to figure it out for a month. And I think we have so many opportunities where we could say, here's what we need to do. And here is why we don't need to pay for the city of tomorrow or build out with the 8,000 people that live here right now. They shouldn't be forced to pay for a full build out level of everything. I think we need to really look at some of these and say, okay, we've got one of the best fire departments around. We've spent a lot of money to make sure we have that. That's 100% my top priority. I think that's great. I don't know if having the highest level in any of these other categories really has that same level for me.
Can I ask a question, Joel?
Please.
What information are you referring to? I don't know where you've collected this, or is this like a report that's out for the
No,
county?
well, it is. You can go to the state. They have the listing of every single one of the budgets that have been coming out for the past 10, 15 years. And you can compare it with the simple formula is this is how much population we have in our city. I know I have to use my hand, sorry. This is the population we have in our city. This is the amount that we're going to spend this year, according to our budget. This is how many people that relates to, or the cost for each one of those people. Then you can also go in there and say, okay, how much of that taxes is residential property tax versus commercial? And we're ridiculously low. We all know that. But that means when we look at somebody like Riverdale, for example, they have so much revenue coming in versus people that live there that they're actually making money every year. That's somebody's, not mine. So those are the numbers that we were pulling from. And I would love to be able to say, okay, let's turn this over to the finance committee. And how are we looking at what we're going to be in 10 years and how much we spend now or stop the spending of now is going to help us. We've got different rates coming in for the, not the retirement, for the, it's the state numbers. Oh, sorry, I can't think right now. Anyways, it's going from what, about a 1% to a 2.5, which isn't much when you consider how many employees we have, full-time employees that we have with that, but it's still $100,000 a year that as long as we just keep on spending on this 1 year, we're not really looking forward. And we've talked about that in capital projects, how we need to put money aside for it. Excuse me. And I don't know, I really don't know what this budget is. If we say, okay, that's it, this is the final budget, really? I mean, we'll be able to talk about it later, but we don't usually. And I mean, I know it's just Joel doing his crap again, but I really wish that we could have a project or something that at least goes through and says, guys, this is what right now, Brandon's not here. I'll just go on and say it, everybody. We spend more money on engineering than South Ogden. Straight out, there's the numbers. It's in their budget. We're South Weber. Maybe the contractor isn't the best way, or maybe it has been and we're not. We're about ready to run out of real property that's going to be turning around, so we're not even going to be getting building permit. And as we just increase the number of people, we're not, according to the numbers that we've pulled, at least we have not been keeping with our number of people back, 10 years, not even 10, I think it was in 21. In 21, we were pretty close to everybody else out there. And then we jumped up to where we left, say, our city was paying per capita about, let's say 18%. I can find the actual numbers. And we've left that and we've gone a different direction. And most of that, we haven't changed the services that we're giving to the city. It takes into account inflation already. So that means most of it is headcount and projects. That's it. I don't think we're massively overloaded on headcount. But even if we just add, and this is just the math, and like I said, I can pass it around. I just don't think we're going to be able to do it tonight. Even if we just look at 5% raise to our 32 full-time employees every year, and not looking at anything else, not looking at the big cost of changes, and we need to match what Riverdale's doing and all of this kind of stuff. We're spending beyond what really we can, and I'm just worried that as we start hitting these different areas, we're not going to have the money to keep up with it. I appreciate you guys letting me talk for so long and ramble on, so thanks. So if any of that means anything, I would just say I would like to see us come up with a formal strategy from the city council of what we want to spend the money on, whether that's paying off debt, whether that's paying for new parks and equipment, or whether it's for keeping our fire department at the top of the top. I think we ought to come out with a strategy that's more than just 1 year. And I think our admin finance group is the best to do it. I just don't know if that's something that's feasible before budget comes to voting on. So, but I would like it. Anyone have any thoughts on my ramble?
Anyone?
And you say the rambles, but I think you expressed some legitimate concerns, Joel. I don't think it's anything that's out of place. I mean, I think I've had those concerns for a long time as we sit here and I go back 9-10 years ago when I first got on council, and you have the public up here telling us they're willing to pay whatever property taxes it can be. I mean, I come from a business background, and I'm sitting here going, okay, what does it take to run this city for the next 30, 40, 50 years? and it's bringing in revenue. But yet I've had all this public sit up here and say, hell no. So then that's how they have to pay for it. And I mean, it's been over and over and over. If we suggest things, I mean, it's been, don't do that in my city. Do that somewhere else. Well, then who pays for all this? But yet they still want the same services. And so it's a fight. I agree with you. It's legitimate concerns. I don't know how a lot of these little cities continue financially, because you're trying to give them the same services with a city that's 10 times the size of us. And that's what people are expecting.
One of the cities I looked at is White City. It's down literally in the middle of Sandy. So it was kind of an interesting comparison of a small, basically residential city surrounded by metropolises. They've got no chance for getting any more commercial. And because of that, they've had to keep their budgets very low.
Think they're about to get swallowed up.
I think so too, but I've been thinking that since I was 12 and lived right near there. So I don't know what the answer is. And that's what I'm trying to say is that I just feel like the last 4 or 5 years when I've done the budget, I've always wanted to do more. And I think we've made some improvements. I'm not saying you guys haven't. You guys have done a fantastic job. But I just don't think that we've done a good enough job as a council giving the strategy of what we feel is best and then doing it. I mean, Angie, even you told me one time, there's never a right time to raise. And I agree, there really isn't. But I don't think we're heading to the best of times coming ahead of us. And yet we're spending like we are instead of saving some. So, and maybe that's it. We save some, but anyway, sorry.
Joe makes some points, and I'm not debating the right or wrong. I just know that's a cost per capita is a metrics, but there's so many qualitative aspects behind that we have to also sift through to understand what does that really mean. Cost of service, what's that service, the level of service, not so much where the revenue is coming from. So it's a combination of what both you and Blair are talking about. I don't think it's something that we could come up with a magical answer before the budget's going to be presented in May and so regards to, you mentioned a project. I don't know if it's a project that Blair and I can heft, although Blair's got some pretty good shoulders down there. He can a lot of hefty. Joking aside, I mean, yeah, we're dealing with people's money, and we're trying to make the best fiduciary decisions for the benefit of not just only today's, but the forward. I'm not saying we're investing in our future, but we have to do some of that with regards to today's requirements as well. So, yeah, I understand things will go up with smaller communities. You put another 100,000 people in a community, and obviously the cost per person is going to go down. Compare city to city to what's the different demographics. I have to deal with Sandy City. They have a lot of contracts with Sandy City that doesn't cost them very much, but they get the service. So it's kind of like, yeah, their costs are low because they can't. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, it's a metrics, but we also need to put a little, asterisk next to that. Is what is that really telling us? Points taken. We're increasing. So what does that mean? And take a look at it.
Well, and there's 3 different city level or municipal, I should say, budgeting numbers to look at. Capita is one. And again, that's like you said, it's a very high level on it. But there's 2 others that between the 3 of them, it really paints you a good picture of what you're spending and whether you're spending on bloat, which means you're just paying too high for services, or if there's some type of economies that could be cut, like you said, by cutting down maintenance costs. I mean, I don't know if we could even come up with enough of a strategy to look at it and say, okay, when we're on I think on the list was 2 or 3 new full-time employees. 2?
There's no new full-time employees in this
Then
budget.
just adding them to the retirement, right? That was the one that was on there.
We're just putting them on salary.
It was just changing from hourly rate to salary.
Oh, okay, so we're not putting them on the Utah retirement system.
No, they're
We're
already
giving
on
them-
there.
already on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're one of the, okay. But that's kind of something that we would be looking at. How much percentage wise versus all of these other cities, big or small, are we on par with? And while I don't think any one number gives you a direct, hey, we're really high, I do think that a story is pretty quickly unfolding as you do this. And I don't know, maybe this is something that Brett can work on, but I know that he's also extremely busy. So I don't know where to go with it. I know that I don't want to do another tax increase, and I want to do some more looking forward on the next one at least, I guess. So. Thank you.
Okay, any more direction from anyone?
Mayor, there are a couple of items that we need to point out that are in the draft budget right now.
Okay.
One of the items that is in there that went through the Recreation Committee is switching our software for registrations from a company called Sports Sites to a company called Sportsman. Right now, our Sports Sites software is for registrations. We also have a separate software called Gym Assistance for our memberships. And we've done some research and looked at options to enhance that service by switching to Sportsman. There is an annual cost difference there ongoing, as well as a one-time implementation cost that is currently in the draft budget. But what I want to bring up is the idea that our current contract goes through the end of June 30th. In order to be able to go live with the new software July 1, we would need to be signing an agreement and starting that transition process over the next 2 months. So if the council's okay with leaving that in as it is, I would take that as a signal that we could sign that agreement and start that transition. So we did not want to sign anything until the council had officially had a chance to see that. I know it's not officially adopted in the budget until the end of June, but that timing doesn't work out for the way that Sports Sites transitions. And so I wanted to bring that up as something that you could look at and at least.
Hey, I'm just gonna jump right in. There's money in the budget if you go with one or the other, right? It doesn't matter. If you weren't having this debate about who, you still would have had money in the budget to cover it. So the actual signing agreement, that's an administrative aspect, as long as there's money in there to cover it.
But there's not money to cover our current budget. So it either requires a budget amendment or it requires having that money in the budget for next year. So it's currently in the budget for next year to transition July 1.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sign that agreement and start the transition until it is budgeted and appropriated by the council. So I would essentially be signing the agreement administratively to start making that change with the understanding that recognizing the draft budget includes it, and I would take that as authorization from the council that it would be budgeted for July 1, so I would not be overstepping.
For the record, we're talking how many dollars for the new contract?
The difference is what, Rep?
So the one time to switch was 25 and then the ongoing.
2,500.
And the total was 5, but the difference from what we're currently paying to the 5 is about $1,300.
So ongoing $1,300 a year, implementation $2,500. Again, it's within my budget ability to sign that contract and move forward if it's budgeted. Well, it's technically not budgeted now, so that's why I bring it forward as a.
I think it's planned to be budgeted, so I don't have a problem with it.
I don't either.
Okay. Another item is we have the last few years used recreation fund balance to supplement the loss of the gravel pit funds that Joel brought up previously, that revenue stream has decreased. Well, at the current rate, we basically can do that one more year. This fiscal year 27 covers it this year, but after that, it is not an option anymore. And so I want to bring that to the council's attention. The rec committee has been talking about that for a few years now as a looming issue and trying to tackle that. But again, just pointing that out in our current draft budget as it stands. Another item is, we just, in the budget, we have $15,000 for a server upgrade. We just got the quote back. The recommendation is to do the server upgrade and a firewall upgrade, which totals 30,000. The server would be 20 by itself. The firewall would be 10,000. So, if the council's okay with that, we would recommend before our next, draft budget discussion to increase that line item from 15,000 to 30,000. Questions or concerns about that specific item?
What's getting cut to be able to balance that budget?
That's within the capital projects as a project, not an ongoing cost. So it would just be a fund balance item from 15 to 30.
The capital reserves are gonna go down.
Yes. Again, only if the council's okay with it, right? It's all in draft status right now.
In relation to the capital, we have increased the sales tax revenue going into capital from last year to this year. I know we've been working on a upward amount to increase what we put into capital from sales tax. Last year it was at 200. This current year we're at 217, and next year we plan to increase that to 230. We are working on increasing the amount that we put in to the capital and putting that into reserves, not just for the current year's capital projects, but for future capital years projects that we plan on doing.
We've discussed in admin finance of getting it to 250 and trying to maintain as, I mean.
250.
250, yeah. And when we originally set that, it was 150, then we went to 200. And then, but it didn't have anything to implement that it should increase based on the same percentage that everything else is increasing. So that's one of the discussions we need to have is, as admin finance, and come back with a recommendation is how does that increase? So that that capital fund can still keep up with everything that's going on. Before we didn't have that, there was no money going into those funds. And it was a problem. But it needs to increase from what it is so that some of these things like that road project aren't so painful.
When we came out of the budget retreat, the intent was to do 250,000. After going through all of the committee meetings and the discussions there, two major things that came out of that based on kind of the market study discussion and all the other committees was to remove the 30,000 that we had said for code enforcement changes. And that's part of getting that to the 217. So the current budget includes all of the market study. It does not include a new code enforcement officer. And instead of 250 of sales tax, it's 217 of sales tax going into capital projects.
230?
It's
230.
217 fiscal year 26, 230 going to.
Sorry,
Going forward,
yes,
we're up to
I
230.
did not make
Yeah.
that clear. And one final thing to point out, again, information that came after the budget draft was put out and published last week. We got information from Central Weber Sewer Improvement District about an intent for them to increase their fee by 8%. In the past, the council has said that is a pass-through fee. It's not our fee to determine. And so if the council continues with that philosophy, then our sewer monthly utility fee, their portion only would go up 8%. We haven't calculated what that would be as a total fee increase for the city's monthly utility bill, sewer fee, but their fee would be an 8% increase. So philosophically, would you want us to look at maybe eating some of that or just passing that through because it's not our fee?
I say pass it through because we are already eroding those funds for the other project. It's not our fee.
It is just shy of $2.
It's fairly significant.
It's right now our current rate on that is $23.62. and I believe it will go up to 2550.
So Rod, what are the Central Weavers Sewer Improvement District's increased costs? Why are they always coming back for more and more money? They got capital projects? Are they
So this,
coping?
they've got one that's eating them alive right now. But this 8% that they're gonna raise it, last year, it was supposed to go into effect last year. And I don't think they did things exactly the way they should, and the state turned them down and said you can't do it. So they're doing it this year rather than last year. I believe it was 3 years ago that they, maybe 4, that because of the increases in inflation and everything else, like everybody else suffers with, they needed to put a 24% increase, and they didn't want to throw it all in one year. And so the committee met and decided that they would do it in 3-year increments of 8% each year. This 8% increase here is the last of the 3 increases that they're going to be having, but they're like everything else, everybody else, growth. You know, they just finished $82 million project out there to upsize the plant and to go from chlorination to ultraviolet, and then also enlarge the plant. They're doing a project right now, the one that's really come back to bite them. They've got to replace a main there on 1900 West, and they started at Midland, and I think it runs to 12th Street. And they're fighting. They've had problems with Verizon with their right of way, and UDOT is not been good at all. It's cost the district a lot of money because of UDOT. And anyway, they've just got all of these big projects that are coming down the line. But anyway, that's what that 8% is.
The rehabilitation of existing capital that's taking a big chunk of this, and then they're also planning for some future growth.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm passed through with Angie. Just pass it.
Yeah, I think pass through is gonna be the best. I think that's what we've done before.
Okay. As a final item from me, as far as budget process goes, a tentative budget will go before the council for adoption May 12th. We have scheduled in 2 weeks another budget discussion item. So essentially any feedback from tonight, any requested changes or whatnot, we're going to be worked on and put into a second draft so that we can review that and look at that in 2 weeks. And then we'd have 2 weeks from that budget discussion to have a tentative budget ready for adoption May 12th, followed by a public hearing on that tentative budget so that the community could look at it, public could see that, provide any comments and feedback end of May, and then in June, the final budget would be adopted. So we're coming to the final stages here, but also, like I said, it is in draft format, and now's the time to be discussing changes as desired by the council.
Mayor, may I not make a motion, but I propose that the staff be directed to come back with a draft budget holding the rate, and a draft budget that they proposed of reestablishing the rate of 2 years ago. I'm interested to see if you're holding the rate, what has to be cut, or where are you changing to, save $60,000? Where's that coming from? And that way we can take those 2 pieces of information, and when we adopt, then we can adopt one or the other based upon the information you bring forward. That would be my recommendation.
I would agree with
I
that.
think that's kind of what Blair was saying.
Yeah. And it's only $5,000 or $6,000, so I'm hoping we can find that without taking with what we're putting into capital.
Okay. New business, anyone have any new business they'd like to discuss? Anything come out of your committees that you'd like to discuss? Wayne?
Yeah, we had a meeting the other day with the gravel pits. And we enlightened them on the Utah State University study, which they are now taking a deeper look at. We actually provided them the actual report. And we're going to further dialogue with them at our next meeting as to what are our next steps as. Without saying anything more than that. We did ask what their plans were, given the water year we're having, the lowest on history, April 1st, lowest on history. They indicated they both have their own water right wells, and that's where most of their watering comes from. They are not concerned, but they did question when the irrigation companies are turning their water, because that's what waters the embankment or the grassy areas along. So you might see that turn a little brown, is my suspicion, but the indication was they're still not putting enough water down. The dust is still happening. Despite our questioning, we asked, what is your backup? And they don't have a backup plan. So I think we need to have some further dialogue with our state representatives and the environmental services, because they should. And they're not willing to go anywhere else. They don't think they need to go anywhere else, even though the material still becomes airborne. So other dialogue is going to have to go at a higher level to, force some sort of change. It's not happening. They are doing, they aren't ignoring the issue. I'm not saying they're not sitting on their hands and doing nothing. They're doing what they can with what they have. But obviously the material that they have on site right now does not hold the water and dries out really quickly with the wind. So unless we can stop the wind, which in my solution was put a wall up in front of those stockpiles and force the wind around it. They're not willing to do that.
Did you meet with both companies?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
very good.
Yep,
There
their nose
hasn't
are,
always been, that's why I'm asking.
yeah,
no,
they're both of them equally, talking to them both, and if they can keep water on it, it seems to be great, but the problem is you can't keep about an inch of water or 2 to 3 inches of water a month is what it takes to keep that stuff from getting airborne. And that's just a lot of water. That's just not in their capability of doing so. It's got to be shielded or sheltered and kept out of the wind, and that's what they're going to have to be compelled to do because they're not willing to do it on their own. At least that's my report. I'm not putting words in their mouth, but that's just my report of what I get from them. If we had any other committee meetings, did we, Mayor?
I think that's it.
Oh. Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about the budget and you guys got to hear that, so I don't think there's anything more we need to add on that one. So that's my report. Thanks.
Jeremy, you have any?
Nothing new. No.
Joe? Angie?
Just to kind of piggyback off of what Wayne said, we did have a small email discussion about watering in the parks and how that might look different this year. So our parks may not be as illustrious as in previous years. And then look for information coming forward on our next agenda for different discussions from our parks committee. Okay. That's it.
Blair?
Nothing to report.
Dave?
Just one thing related to watering. Additionally, we have a system of pulling our fire hydrants in order to ensure that they're working. And do that annually. This year, I directed Derek to hold off on important activity. Water year like this. Back off.
Well, wait, I've got a yard and there's a fire hydrant nearby. They can always put it on my yard, and it goes to a good use. That way my neighbors wouldn't mind it either, but. One time application, but I'm trying to help you out. But are you flushing all the hydrants in the city every year, or do you just do a section every year?
What's the risk of not doing that? Okay.
Trivia, how many hydrants do we have?
That was a trivia question at a retreat. I can't remember either.
I don't know.
I generally understand what you're saying, but I still think there might be one or two that may need to be flushed on dead ends and stuff like that to keep. the
I was just
volume
gonna say, your dead end ones that collect stuff, that might be a good to just do the dead end ones, cause that's what gets in those valves and. Do what you think. I mean, I think you need to do what's smart.
running. Be prudent.
Just be prudent.
Sounds good. Thank
What
you.
are we doing on firework restrictions this year? Any changes, any additions?
Right now, no changes, but that's coming before the council next meeting, I believe.
Has to be before May.
Yeah, I believe it's scheduled for April 28th.
Last meeting I was in about, states looking at fireworks and open burning, kind of like we did about 4 or 5 years ago. So that might just be forced upon us from the state of Kevin.
Okay.
Just keep in mind that if you want to make that as a municipal restriction, your next council meeting is the opportunity. If you don't do it by May 1st, then you lose that chance. You can always restrict them May 1st and then make it less restrictive when the date rolls around, if you find that conditions are different than you expect them to be. It does have to be based off of your fire chief's recommendation or your fire marshal's recommendation, but that's your opportunity for making that decision. If you don't make it by May 1, then you can't.
Okay, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?